Good afternoon and welcome to the World News on ITV. First, let's go through the headlines. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden unveils $1.9 trillion economic relief package. Uganda incumbent President Yoweri. In the World News, U.S. President-elect Joe Biden unveils $1.9 trillion economic relief package. Uganda incumbent President Yoweri Museveni takes early lead in Uganda vote count. Indonesia continued to count cost of earthquake damage. Thank you for joining us on the World News. I am Blessing A.G. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has said that the federal government is not contemplating another lockdown this weekend. In a statement, the Director of Information, Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Willie Bassi, said the news in the social media that the federal government was contemplating another lockdown is fake, false, unfounded, and misleading. The PTF said there is no such consideration at any of its meetings, nor has any recommendation been made to that effect to the President. The PTF frowned at such misinformation, which it described as unpatriotic and capable of causing unnecessary panic and anxiety among the populace. It urged Nigerians to disregard the misinformation and join hands with the federal government to contain the spread of the virus in the country by adhering to non-pharmaceutical interventions as recommended by the PTF. The federal government has approved the resumption of schools on January 18 after reaching consensus with governors, commissioners, and other stakeholders. The consensus was reached at a meeting between the Ministry of Education, Malam Adamu, and Commissioners of Education in Abuja. Permanent Secretary of the Federal Ministry of Education, Architect Sonny Echono, who confirmed this to newsmen, said they had extensive discussions with state governors, proprietors of schools, labor and staff unions, and students' representatives, and the consensus is that they should reopen all schools. Architect Echono, however, added that the reopening of schools will be in compliance with COVID-19 protocols, especially strict adherence to non-pharmaceutical procedures. The Court of Appeal in Abuja yesterday dismissed the suit seeking the removal of Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello. Justice Stephen Ada, who delivered the judgment, said the plaintiffs lacked the local standard to seek an order to remove the governor. ITV Abuja correspondent Joseph Kadri has details.
The suit seeking the removal of Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello on the grounds that he is not a registered voter of Kogi State, but in Abuja, cannot be nominated as a candidate for the office of the governor, that anyone who is not a registered voter in Kogi State cannot vote and be voted for. The suit was dismissed by the Federal High Court on the grounds of jurisdiction. Not satisfied with the judgment, the plaintiff went to the Court of Appeal to seek redress. Delivering judgment on the appeal, Justice Stephen Ada says that nothing is wrong with the judgment of the Federal High Court, that the political party has the responsibility of nominating a candidate in any election. The court says the plaintiff lacks local standard on the matter. The court says it agreed completely with the judgment of the Federal High Court, however, dismissed the suit. After the judgment, counsel to Yahaya Bello, Paul Daudu, says the judgment is victory for democracy.
It made us to understand that some registered voters in Kogi State in 2017 challenged the nomination of Alhaji Yahaya Bello, the incumbent governor of Kogi State, as the substitute candidate. They said he was not a registered voter in Kogi State, and that the usual procedure for nominating candidates were not followed. That is, registered voters nominating as part of the procedure. But the court said nomination of candidates is the exclusive prerogative of political parties. It is political parties that have the right to nominate a candidate, And if since they didn't show to be members of any of the APC, who nominated Yahaya Bello to replace the late Abubakar Audu, that they had no local standard, and that put an end to the case.
Joseph Kadri, ITV News, Abuja.
National President, Nigeria Union of Journalists, Comrade Chris Isiguzo, has congratulated the Director, Independent Television and Radio, Senior Elder Ogbedi Uwonsi, on his recent promotion. The message was conveyed by the Chairman of Nigeria Union of Journalists, Edo State Council, Comrade Roland Usakwe, during a courtesy visit to the management of the station at the Communications Village, Iguosa, Benin City. Deborah Ugbefun reports that Sir Roland Usakwe led Edo State Energy Executive to also formally congratulate Senior Elder Ogbedi Uwonsi.
The chairman, Edo State Chapter of the Nigeria Union of Journalists, Comrade Roland Usakwe, who led the executive of the union to the station, said the president of the union, Comrade Chris Isiguzo, would have loved to personally convey his congratulatory message to Senior Elder Ogbedi Uwonsi, but was held back by some other pressing national assignments. He congratulated Senior Elder Ogbedi Uwonsi on his recent promotion to the position of a director, ITV Radio.
The national president of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Chief Chris Isiguzo, also asked me to come with my members of executive to come and congratulate you on behalf of the Nigerian Union of Journalists in Nigeria, that this is a well-deserved position that you have earned these days. It is a pride, not only to you and your family, but to the entire members of the Nigerian Union of Journalists nationwide.
Comrade Usakwe said the promotion of Senior Elder Ogbedi Uwonsi to the position of Director, Independent Television and Radio is well deserved because of his sterling leadership qualities, dedication to duty, and humility.
Ogbedi is a man that is dedicated to duty. His humility surpasses every other person's humility when it comes to work, and he's very, very dedicated. We looked at him as a man that he could earn this position because of these three attributes. That is why we have come. That whatever a man sows, so also he reaps. He's a man who has passed through the Rubicon. He started from the scratch and now is at the pinnacle of this profession. So, on behalf of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, the Edo State Council, I congratulate you.
Responding, the Director, Independent Television and Radio, Senior Elder Ogbedi Uwonsi, thanked the President, Nigerian Union of Journalists, Comrade Chris Isiguzo, and the Edo State Council of NUJ, led by Comrade Usakwe, for felicitating with him. He pledged his continued support for the growth of the NUJ, both at the state and national levels.
Whatever we are doing today, and whatever position we have attained today as a station, by the God's grace, we will double it. I want to thank our chairman, who has first of all established this place for all of us to exercise our professional talents that we are all exhibiting today. All glory goes to him and the Almighty God. We want to thank the chairman and through you to the president of NUJ, who has sent his facilitator to us. As a comrade, we will continue to do our best. Nigerian Union of Journalists, that in his tenure will be the best that we will ever have seen in Nigeria.
The chairman of Nigerian Union of Journalists, Edo State Council, Comrade Roland Usakwe, also formally presented the newly elected chairman of NUJ, ITV Radio Chapel, Best Mbieri, to the management of the station. Deborah Ugbefun reporting.
Children and family members of Mr. Imwetinya Inoagbon, who was allegedly killed by a resident of Runigbe town, Orenwo local government area, over credit facilities, have cried out for justice. Efosa Uwanga reports that the Edo State Police Command says it is yet to be briefed on the alleged murder of Imwetinya in Oragbon in Uronigbe, Urion local government area of Edo State.
The children of Imwetinya in Oragbon, who was allegedly killed by residents in tears at the corporate office of Independent Television and Radio, Airport Road, Benin City. They appealed to Edo State government and the police to bring to justice the man accused of the murder of their father, no matter how highly placed. The eldest son, Mavis Imwetinya, said the murder of their father on the 27th of December 2020 was in connection with money borrowing from a cooperative society under the leadership of his father. He said a guarantor of a loan defaulter who felt his father could be responsible for the death of his own son allegedly retaliated with support of others to kill their father, Mr. Imwetinya.
Came to my father's house, dragged him out of the house, beat him to death, and they burned down the houses. They burned down my father's house. So right now we are crying to government to come to our aid. He said there's nothing we can do, that he has been doing it before, that there's nothing we can do, that he will do it again and again. So that's why we came to the government and everybody that is concerned to come to our aid. When they even killed him, they took his body away. They went to go and drop it in a swamp. So it was after about 5 days we were able to recover his body on the 31st of December. That is on Washington Day, we were able to recover his body. So right now, my father's corpse is lying at Ronigbe Mortuary right now.
The police image maker SP Chidi Wambuzo said the issue is here to be confirmed from the Abudu Police Division, saying once the issue of the arrival of the new Commissioner of Police has been concluded, inquiries will be carried out to that effect. The PRO who spoke off camera, however, said no criminal case will be swept under the carpet as the perpetrators will be made to face the full wrath of the law. As at the time of this report, the said guarantor whereabouts was unknown as his mobile number has been switched off for over 2 weeks. Fosa Wangwe reporting.
Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese Matthew Kuka has said that Nigeria has not recovered from wounds of the civil war 51 years after the unfortunate event. He also lamented that the leaders have not learned instructive lessons from the 30-month war. The activist cleric, who spoke at the second edition of the Never Again conference, said the country has failed to adopt resolutions meant to heal the wounds of the war. Kuka said some of the neglected resolutions were re-echoed at the Human Rights Violations Investigation Commission set up by former President Olusegun Obasanjo and chaired by the late Justice Chikwu Oputa. He also said while the military laid the foundation for Nigerians to begin a process of rebuilding the nation, things somehow went wrong along the line. The Director General, National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, has warned Nigerians not to take any vaccine except the ones approved by the agency. Adeyeye, at a briefing today, said the World Health Organization's approval was not enough for the use of the vaccine, except the regulatory agency certifies the vaccine safe for use. It said despite the WHO giving approval for the use of any vaccine, the regulatory agency of a country must approve such a vaccine before it could be administered on people. Professor Adeyeye said vaccines should not be ordered by any company or corporation, stressing that companies that manufacture the vaccines know that they have to submit their application to NAFDAC for approval before use. She said no government establishments or agencies should order COVID-19 vaccines without confirming from NAFDAC if the vaccine has been approved. You're watching the World News on ITV. Still to come, Uganda incumbent President Yoweri Museveni takes early lead in Uganda vote count. Plus stay tuned for details after this break. Thank you for staying with us on the World News on ITV. President-elect Joe Biden has unveiled a $1.9 trillion stimulus plan for the coronavirus-sapped U.S. economy before he takes office next week. If passed by Congress, it would include $1 trillion for households with direct payments of $1,400 to all Americans. Roslyn Ewuramin has details.
The relief proposal includes $415 billion to fight the virus and $440 billion for small businesses. Mr. Biden, a Democrat, has promised to take as one of his top priorities the coronavirus pandemic that has killed more than 385,000 people in the U.S. He said the direct payment of $1,400 would come on top $600 payment provided in a relief bill enacted last month. Mr. Biden's proposal comes as a winter surge of the coronavirus breaks records. Mr. Biden wants to pump $20 billion into vaccinating Americans, including setting up mass vaccination hubs and dispatching mobile units to remote areas.
We not only have an economic imperative to act now, I believe we have a moral obligation. In this pandemic, in America, we cannot let people go hungry. We cannot let people get evicted. We cannot watch nurses, educators, and others lose their jobs. We so badly need them. We must act now and act decisively.
The proposal would also bring payouts for families to the $2,000 figure that both Mr. Biden and Mr. Trump called for. The president-elect will also call on Congress to double the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, a Democratic priority that predates the pandemic. Roslyn Eworame reporting.
U.S. Republicans in Congress are deeply divided after 10 members have split with their party to impeach President Donald Trump on Wednesday. Congresswoman Liz Cheney, the third-ranking House Republican, is facing calls to resign her party leadership role after a vote to impeach President Trump. Roslyn Eworame again has more.
The House of Representatives voted by 232 votes against 197 votes on Wednesday to impeach President Trump for allegedly inciting rioters who stormed the Capitol Hill last week. Following the impeachment, President Trump, who is on his way out from the Oval Office, now prepares to face a trial in the Senate. With this development, the Republican lawmakers who voted to impeach President Trump face threats of violence and have called for increased security. Ms. Cheney, a Wyoming congresswoman whose father was vice president to Republican George Bush, faced immediate calls to resign after voting to impeach President Trump for inciting insurrection against the U.S. government. Mr. Trump's conservative defenders in Congress have consistently called for her to quit her leadership in the party. If Mr. Trump is convicted, Senator could then hold another vote to block him from running for elected office again, which he had indicated plans to do so in 2024. Meanwhile, the FBI has warned of possible armed protests planned for Washington, D.C. and all 50 U.S. states' capital in the run-up to Democratic President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration on Wednesday next week. Roslyn Eworame reporting.
Uganda's incumbent president, Yoweri Museveni, has taken a significant early lead in the presidential race, according to preliminary results released by the Electoral Commission this morning. Mr. Museveni has garnered over 1.5 million votes, while his main rival, Robert Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobi Wine, has polled 647,146 votes from 8,310 polling stations. The country has a total of 34,684 polling stations. Bobi Wine is alleged there was widespread fraud and violence during Thursday's poll, but gave no details of his accusations. Uganda's government has described the election as peaceful. Elsewhere, rescuers are searching through the rubble of a partially collapsed Indonesian hospital after a deadly earthquake struck the island of Sulawesi, leaving at least 30 people dead. Roslyn Eworame reports that the 6.2 magnitude quake today came just hours after an earlier smaller tremor.
Hundreds of people were injured and thousands displaced by the quake. 6 patients and their families were trapped when parts of the Mira Manakara Hospital in the town of Manuju collapsed. Authorities have put the overall death toll for the city to at least 26, but feared that more people are buried under collapsed buildings. The epicenter of today's quake was 6 kilometers northeast of Majin City at a depth of 10 kilometers. The initial toll for Majin was reported as 4 people killed and hundreds injured. No tsunami warnings was issued, but thousands are reported to have left their homes fleeing to safety. Among the badly damaged buildings include homes, 2 hotels, and the governor's office, and more, amongst others. Authorities have warned that strong aftershocks could follow the 2 main quakes and that they could still trigger a tsunami. Indonesia is prone to earthquakes because it lies on the Ring of Fire, a line of frequent quakes and volcanic eruptions on the Pacific Rim. Roslyn Eworame reporting.
The leader of the Taliban in Afghanistan has issued a decree urging the group's leaders and commanders to forgo taking multiple wives, which is said was inviting criticism from its enemies. Muslim men can be permitted by religion to have up to 4 wives at a time, and polygamy is still legal in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and some other predominantly Muslim nations. But sources close to Taliban said the practice was creating increasing demand from commanders for funds to pay a bride price. The Taliban leadership was concerned over allegations of corruption against members attempting to raise funds to sustain large or multiple households. The 2-page decree issued in the name of Afghan Taliban leader Mullah Hibatullah does not ban 2nd, 3rd, or 4th marriages, but warns that large amounts of money spent on marriage ceremonies can invite criticism from the Taliban's opponents. Hospitals in the Brazilian city of Manaus have reached breaking point while treating COVID-19 patients amid reports of severe oxygen shortages and desperate staff. The city in Amazonas state has seen a surge of deaths and infections. Brazil has recorded more than 205,000 virus deaths, the 2nd highest tally in the world, behind the U.S. Amazonas suffered heavy losses in the first wave of the pandemic, but is also being badly hit by a new rise in infections. Amazonas Governor Wilson Lima said the state was in the most critical moment of the pandemic and has announced a nightly curfew will begin today to try to stem the spread. North Korea has unveiled a new type of submarine-launched ballistic missile described by state media as the world's most powerful weapon. Several of the missiles were displayed at a parade overseen by leader Kim Jong-un. The show of military strength comes days after the inauguration of Joe Biden as U.S. president. It also follows a rare political meeting where Mr. Kim decried the U.S. as his country's biggest enemy. At least 4 large black and white missiles being driven past flag-waving crowds. Analysts noted it was a previously unseen weapon. Authorities in Mexico say they will not pursue criminal charges against ex-defense minister Salvador Cienfuegos, who was accused by the U.S. of collaborating with drugs cartel. The Attorney General said there was no evidence General Cienfuegos had been in contact with any criminal group. He was arrested at Los Angeles airport last year and returned to Mexico after the U.S. dropped the charges. His detention caused a major diplomatic rift between the U.S. and Mexico. The Mexican government said the latest decision would help to restore strained ties, and General Cienfuegos has always denied any wrongdoing. And now talking sports, Victor Osimhen is set to return to action for Napoli before the end of February. The Nigerian international has not been on the pitch since his injury in the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers against Sierra Leone in November 2020. The 22-year-old tested positive again after a new coronavirus test on Monday and is expected to still be out for 20 to 30 days. Osimhen tested positive for the virus after returning from a trip to Nigeria and has been self-isolating since then. The striker's first test, which returned positive on arrival in Naples, kicked off a chain of events that landed him in trouble with Napoli. The Serie A club giants were unhappy to see a video of Osimhen dancing and spraying money at a party in Lagos with complete disregard to COVID-19 protocols. Although Osimhen apologized, Napoli manager Gennaro Gattuso said Osimhen would pay for the silly mistake. And now to end the world news on ITV, a look again at our top stories. President-elect Joe Biden has unveiled a $1.9 trillion stimulus plan for the coronavirus-sapped U.S. economy before he takes office next week. Also, we brought to you the story that Uganda's incumbent president, Yoweri Museveni, has taken a significant early lead in the presidential race, according to preliminary results released by the Electoral Commission this morning. Finally, rescuers are searching through the rubble of a partially collapsed Indonesian hospital after a deadly earthquake struck the island of Sulawesi, leaving at least 30 people dead. And it's a wrap on the World News on ITV. Thank you for watching. I am Blessing Aichi. Good afternoon.
Independent television news, truly independent.